Tanzania is facing a serious crisis. It began with a presidential election. Many people believe this election was not fair. The main opposition parties were not allowed to participate. Their candidates were blocked from the ballot. This decision made many Tanzanian citizens very angry. They felt their right to choose their leaders was taken away. When voters have no real choice, faith in the democratic process can break. This is what is happening across the country now. People are questioning the very foundation of our government. Protests started almost immediately after the vote. They began in the largest city, Dar es Salaam, Mwanza. People went into the streets to show their frustration. They felt the result was decided before anyone even voted. The anger was not just about one candidate, it was about the system itself. People want electoral laws that are fair to everyone. They want all parties to have a chance to compete. The exclusion of major opposition figures like Tundu Lissu became a symbol of a broken system. The government's reaction to the protests was strong and immediate. Soldiers were sent onto the streets of major cities. They were deployed alongside the police force. The sight of the military in urban neighborhoods is not common in Tanzania. It is usually a sign of a very serious problem. Their job was to stop the riots and clear the streets. In working-class areas of Dar es Salaam, people built barricades. They burned tires to block the roads. These were scenes of public anger, more familiar in neighboring Kenya, but new and shocking for many Tanzanians. At the same time, the government imposed a curfew. People had to stay in their homes at night. The official reason was to restore order and safety. But for many, it felt like punishment. It restricted freedom of movement. It made it hard to go to work or get essential supplies. The curfew and military presence created an atmosphere of control and tension. The streets became quiet, an uneasy, enforced quiet. The government also shut down the internet across the country. This was a critical move. The human cost of the post-election violence is deeply concerning. The main opposition party, Chadema, has made shocking claims. A party spokesperson said they had visited hospitals across the country. Based on these visits, they reported that hundreds of people have been killed. They claimed that around 350 people died in Dar es Salaam alone. They also reported more than 200 deaths in the city of Mwanza. The party's estimate put the total number of deaths nationwide at around 700. These numbers are not officially confirmed, but they paint a terrifying picture of the violence. These claims of mass casualties have sent waves of fear through communities. Families are worried about relatives who attended the protests. With the internet down, it is hard to get information. People do not know who is safe, who is injured, and who is missing. The opposition's reports from hospitals suggest that the violence was severe. The government has not confirmed these figures. This lack of official information makes the situation even more confusing and frightening. For ordinary Tanzanians, the lack of truth is as painful as the violence itself. The crisis in Tanzania is not happening in isolation. Neighboring countries in East Africa are watching closely. Many of their citizens feel a connection to the people of Tanzania. They have taken to social media and the streets to show their support. They use phrases like "Jumuiya ni yetu," which means the community is ours. This shows a sense of shared identity and destiny. They believe the tragic events go against the principles of the East African community. This regional solidarity comes from a shared concern. Many activists across East Africa feel democracy is in danger. They see a pattern of shrinking space for dissent in their own countries. There are concerns governments may be working together to silence opposition. Critics point to cases where activists were arrested in one country and deported to another. One Kenyan politician called it a regional collaboration in oppressing citizens. This makes the fight for rights in Tanzania a fight for the entire region. Official bodies have expressed concern. The East African Community Secretariat issued a statement calling for respect for human rights and the rule of law. Similar messages have come from the Southern African Development Community. Civil society groups in Malawi and in Zambia have voiced support for the Tanzanian people. The path forward for Tanzania is difficult, but the demands of the people are clear. At the heart of the protests is a simple call for basic human rights. People want the right to choose their leaders in free and fair elections. They want the right to speak their minds without fear. They want the right to gather peacefully. And these are not radical demands. They are protected in Tanzania's constitution and international law. Respecting these rights is the first step toward peace. To restore trust, there must be a real investigation into the violence. The claims of hundreds of deaths must be taken seriously. An independent body should find out what really happened. Families deserve to know the truth. Those responsible must be held accountable. Justice is essential for healing. Without it, anger and grief will remain, and the cycle of violence could continue. The government must show it values the lives of all its citizens, not just its supporters. The international community has a role. Watching and waiting is not enough.
Deploying the army, imposing curfews, shutting down the internet. Protesters said these measures were designed to crush their movement. They argue the government was trying to hide its actions from the world. The demands from the streets were for electoral reform and a voice in their country's future. The government's response was to silence that voice. This has deepened the divide between people and their leaders. It turned a political dispute into a crisis of human rights and public safety for everyone. The core of the problem is a deep dispute over the rules of the game. The president, Tanzania's first female leader, ran for office with almost no real opposition. This sparked widespread anger. The opposition had called for reforms to the election process. They wanted changes to make the voting system more transparent and fair. Instead of getting reforms, one of their main leaders was charged with treason. This move was seen by many as a way to silence dissent. It showed that the government would not listen to calls for change. This set the stage for the conflict we see today. Activists and journalists have been targeted. They reported being tortured and then deported.